Today at Greenrv we're going to be fitting two 100 watt solar panels to Jayco Sterling. The solar panels we're going to be using are one solar Blue Sun solar panels, 100 watt, 5-year warranty on them. Specially designed to allow an inch of airflow underneath the panel. And as you can see, here is one we've just finished. As you can see, we've dummy fitted the panels for now, just to see where they will line up. From here we'll get our wire length, and this is the important part to find out where we come down through the van. As I mentioned, it's important to notice where the wiring comes down through the roof, and a good place for that is so that the wire is well hidden out of the way. As you'll notice in this top corner here, there's already some wiring coming through the roof. Our aim will be to put it through there, through the cupboard, down and under the bed where the battery is located. As I mentioned, this was a pop top. It's not our favourite van to fit solar panels to, as it adds extra weight to the top. But as you noticed before, we noticed where the wires have to come down through the roof, and we're going to fit a J box in the corner here. So the idea from here now is to wire your panels, extend the wiring. We'll run a wire from that panel underneath this one, come out and into our J box. The panels put out around a maximum of around about 5.5 amps. The wiring we've chosen to use is 15 amp wire. When we extend our wiring, we cut off the connectors, and as you can see here, we're putting waterproof terminals on. These are a special terminal that has heat shrink over them, and when heated they seal the connection. The solar panels are labelled with a positive and a negative to help you determine which one's which. Angled lines, we'll try to make it a straight line. And it should look something like that. As you can see, we've run our second wire for the second solar panel. Nice straight lines will always look best. From here we'll conduit the wiring and come back into our J box. Next step from there, drilling a hole in the roof. So the conduit we've chosen for our solar panels is a Clipsal conduit, 20mm, and I'm not quite sure if you can see it, but it's UV stabilised. When fitting the conduit, you'll need to measure it first. We try to always fit the conduit underneath the panel, and you'll have to cut it to a certain size so that you can always pull your wire through at the end. And there's our wire again. So from here, we'll glue the panels to the roof, glue our conduit onto the roof. A little trick we've learnt when fitting these solar panels, we make sure the roof is nice and clean, and we use a good silicone. We use Sikaflex 291, it's a marine grade silicone, it sticks to anything. The little trick is drilling about a 10mm hole in each bracket, and you'll notice what happens when we glue these down. We don't screw our panels, we glue them and let them dry for at least. When we apply the Sikaflex, we give it a very generous coating. As there is no screws, you want to make sure that this sticks well. You'll also notice that on our brackets, they are ribbed for extra strength when the glue sticks to it. If we fell through it. Now we'll just flip it over. This is the important part. We want to make sure it's nice and square with the van. Sometimes it's best to get a friend to help you with this, as it can be a tricky procedure. Once it's straight, put a bit of weight on the panel, push the glue down nice. As you'll see, when it's pushed down, our glue comes out the hole. From there, make a little button out of it. Also, as you can see, the glue is well pushed into the van. From here you can make it look nice and pretty, make it look smooth. You can leave it rough. The panel's stuck down. As I said, we leave at least 24 hours for this to dry. The trick now is gluing the second panel, and what we want to do is ensure that the wire, the conduit, goes underneath the panel. This will make your installation look very smart. Once again, align it with the second panel, make it look nice and straight, and apply weight to the brackets again. Also, as you can see, we have our two wires hanging out the front, which from here we'll run to our J-box. We've come inside the van now to drill our hole through the roof, and as you can see, there is other wires up there. This is the difficult part. If we drill through the roof and hit a wire, it's not good news. So what we plan to do is to drill a little hole, get through the surface, drill a larger hole, have a look up in there and see if there's any wiring in there before we continue to drill all the way through it. This is very delicate. As I said, we're just going to go through the first layer and then have a look in the roof to see if there's anything up there. As you can hear by the sound, we've gone through the first layer and we'll have a look in the roof. So as you can see, we've run our wire through the roof. We've come down through the side, down through the cupboard, and popped out underneath. From here, we've decided we're going to fit our regulator on the wall. Should make it look a nice installation. The idea is, when we come through, we basically want our conduit to be side by side, looking nice and tidy. To do this, we get our calypso box. This is just a normal joining box you'll buy from any 240 outlet, and as you'll notice, it's got grooves in it. You'll see there's one there already. We've got to make the second one. To do that, we'll just cut it out, file it nice and smooth to make it look like this one. As you can see, our wires come through the roof. At the top we cut enough so we can join it with the rest of the wiring. And this is the bottom of our J-box. So from here, what we do is we get our Sikaflex 291, fit the bottom of our J-box on. Before we do that, we glue it. We thoroughly seal this, as this is the only hole we stick in the vehicle. From here, we'll strip the wiring, the main wiring. The wiring we've chosen to go through the roof is 6mm core, and it can handle around about 40 amps. As we're running two panels, it's best to step up from the 15 amp we chose to. And as you can see, we strip the wiring fairly way down. We'll use this kind of joiner. It's the same as what the guys use on the 240 wiring. If they use it, it's good enough for us. So we're just joining up our wires. As you should be able to see, we are sealing the hole extremely well. The trick is to push the wire down at the same time and having it all aligning nice. You'll also notice when it's pushed down, all the glue will ooze out. The next step we've done is glued our conduit down. Like I said, we don't screw it, we glue it. To do this, we've had to use our Sikaflex. We've cable tied the conduit together and put a heavy weight on top of it. From here, let this dry for at least 6 hours before you do anything else on the roof. We'll go downstairs from here, fit the regulator, the rest of the wiring. As I mentioned before, the regulator is a Pro Vista regulator supplied from Electro Parts. It is a 12 volt and 24 volt regulator and is rated up to 30 amps. These come in all different sizes, but as we're fitting 200 watts of power, we've chosen this one. You'll notice illustrated on the front of it is nice and well illustrated, and you can tell that that's a picture of a solar panel, that's a picture of a battery, that's a picture of a load. When it comes to fitting them, they're nice and insulated, easy to do the screws up. As mentioned, our battery is located under the bed, so we'll be coming down through the corner and up through the cupboard. From here, what we're trying to achieve is we have to run a wire from our battery, going to conduit it nice and neat along the side under the bed, come along through the cupboard beside the hot water system and up through our cupboard, which will meet with the wire for the solar panel. As I mentioned, we came from under the bed, through the cupboard, up through the side, followed the rest of the wires so it doesn't make it look messy, and from there we've conduited them. Very important step is that you put fuses in the line. As you'll notice here, we have an inline blade fuse coming off the solar panels, and we'll have one coming off the battery to supply the battery to the regulator. As I mentioned, our wires coming out of the side, we drilled the hole for the side of the cupboard with the plan to put our regulator there. We've allowed enough wire for us to do so. As you can see, we've fitted the regulator, 4 screws. From here we cut our wire to length. As you'll see, we'll have 2 reds and 2 blacks. From here we trim about 8mm off each wire, get the coating off it, and then follow the instructions on the regulator. Some solar regulators, as you'll notice with our one, had a load side of it. At Greenrv we tend not to use the load side of it, and we wire it directly straight up to the battery. As you can see, we're fitting the black split tube conduit to the wire, and the stuff we're using is a Nava conduit. As it's inside, it doesn't need to be UV resistant, and it's just covering the 6mm wire. Okay, we've made the correct length there for our negative terminal. We've stuck the fuse in the line, and it's just a matter from there is putting the terminal on, making sure it's nice and waterproof again. Not that it really matters as it's inside the van, but we choose to anyway. And then hooking it up to the red terminal, the positive. The important thing when you're doing these is you always do your wiring first. The very last thing you do, even after the regulator is hooked up, is actually put the fuses into the fuse holder. This ensures that you're not going to arc anything out. Right, so we're finished downstairs now also. We've tidied up the conduit on the roof, tidied up the wiring from Jayco originally, conduited our 6mm cable coming up from our batteries, installed the regulator, and we've also finished conduiting underneath the bed. All complete. Next step, take it outside in the sun and test it. Right, after 6 hours we let our silicon dry, our Sikaflex dry, and from there we just stuck our cap on top of the junction box, and as you can see it is very well sealed with Sikaflex. We've removed our weights that held our conduit on, and we'll probably put another couple of dobs of silicon under the line. Next step, or the final step, is to install the fuses. Solar panel or battery first, doesn't matter. We're using 2 15 amp fuses in the line. as our panels create a maximum of around about 11 amps in total. 11 to 12 amps, so 15 amps is the next step up. With those two in place, and from there our regulator should be running. As you'll see, it's going through the stages at the moment. It's charging 14.1 volts. It's looking good.